Hello YouTubers. Alright, so today we're gonna demonstrate how you take apart a 1996 to 1999 Oldsmobile Aurora torque access mount. And this is already taken apart, but this is what it looks like when you get it off the car. So basically, it's these 4 bolts that hold it onto the bracket. I removed that. There's the hooks that go on the back. So basically, what you want to do with this is, you can see where I started grinding this one. There's a nice chunk of weld that goes on each side of this. So you want to just grind it up against this lip as flush as you can until it starts to break the weld. And then you'll see it'll start to crack when you get it really close. Then sometimes you just beat it with like a little hammer once it starts to split, and you could get it to go the rest of the way. Or you could just crush it in a vise once it's pretty well spent, and you could get it to break, or you could just keep grinding until it comes completely apart. But that's how you start. This one started, it's not quite there yet. I gotta grind more. Sometimes it helps to use a little Dremel disc because it's thinner, and sometimes I grind at an angle, like diagonally, to try and break that even more in there. So basically, what happens once you break that open, I recommend using an angle grinder to get bulk of it off quickly, is you'll have this piece in here, and you need to take, what I've found that works best for me is a giant C-clamp like this, and then it's pretty tight to get it to, you have to like pinch these lips in and compress them. And then it has to clear the inside of this, and then it pulls up. So you can see once you're crushing it if it's going to clear and how much you're pinching it. And you want to make sure that you get the jaws on it as close to the bottom as you can, because as you can see, like pinch this, it's kind of like already up against the base. So you don't have a lot to grip it to crush it, because you got to crush it closer to the lips, to the end. So yeah, that's how you get it off. I use this pipe for leverage over the bar because that's how hard it is to crush it. So anyway, so this is what it looks like when you have it off. This hole is usually plugged up with like some epoxy stuff, so I go ahead and take a thin Dremel attachment, like a stone or something, grind it out. You could use a drill bit too, it doesn't really matter, anything really. Even a file would probably work. Get that out, and then I use like this little Dremel grinding stone to clean up these edges here to get it ready to re-weld. And then also, this one came off pretty easily, but there's also some I use JB Weld to redo this, and it looks very similar to JB Weld. You can probably see on this one, but I'll show you guys once I put one back together. But you can see in there it's kind of like squishing out. It's like some gray stuff. Kind of looks like this. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's JB Weld, so that's what I use. And, well, there's a big chunk of that, so you grind it out so that it's nice and smooth and down to the metal. I usually take the paint off because I find it grips better on bare metal. And on the inside here, the same thing. There's a hole on the top of this that you'll see later when I show you guys how to put this back together, how that comes into play. So make sure you grind into this area pretty good. And then you lay this. This is from a 1998 Bonneville or some equivalent GM that has a 3.8 liter. And this is the part number for the mount that you need to use to rebuild it. And this is what it looks like. I believe I mounted on the car like this. I used to have a Bonneville, and then it holds the engine in like that. Anyway, this is what it looks like when you unbox it. You basically have to cut this open to get this piece out. So I usually grind right through here, because there's a little bit of a gap here. So I usually just take the grinder and fucking cut this right off. And then as you get it open, you could shove a pry bar in here and spread this open. So that's basically it. I mean, you could also cut it here and pry it open too, but there's these like tabs here that hold it, so I just take it off right here because I'm not going to reuse this anyway. So I'll show you guys what that looks like once I cut it open with the grinder here. And well, anyway, that's what that looks like. Drop it in here, take the C-clamp, compress it. I'll show you guys what it looks like once I get there. Pop it in, and then you release the clamp, and then it pops back open, spreads in there. It'll be kind of loose until you actually weld it down, but I'll show you guys the steps as I go here. So, see you in a few. Alright, I'm back. So basically you can see where I grinded this. And once you get through the first layer, this should pop up a little bit. And then you should be able to get just the pry bar I used. Pretty big one. Slip this in there, like this. And you just like, I usually put my foot on one of these and then press on it. And it'll start to slide through. If you want, you could cut off these lips because it gets stuck. I just keep prying it and tapping it with a hammer until it falls out. It's easier than trying to grind these off, I feel like. And then basically this is scrap metal. So you just pull out the cylinder. I have this one ready to go. And I finished grinding this down. As you can see, you just go little by little. Try not to take off too much metal. And then you'll see like a hairline crack form, like right here. Then you can just pound this with a hammer. And then it'll break the rest of it so you don't have to keep grinding. You can see where I hit it with these little dimples. But, so that's that. And you can see on this one that epoxy JB Weld like stuff in there. You have to grind all that off. And then you can see it's on the back of this. This one's really bad. It's leaking all over the place here. And this is where it's held on the bottom. Once you pop that out, you can flip it over and like Dremel this hole out. Because later that comes into play. Same thing with the top. Alright. And now this. Basically I put this on. You want to get it as close to the bottom as you can. This side's down a little bit farther than I wanted it, but it should still work because this side's up pretty high. So you basically want to make sure you line this tab up with the point of this. You could turn it a little bit once it's in there before you weld it. And then what I did is I slipped this pipe over the end of it and I put it on the ground like this, and you just keep tightening it until it gets enough that you could line this up. This is really close. I think it should be good enough. So you want to make sure that the point on this faces these two teeth. You should be good to go. Now with this one, I'm going to have to slide this end in first because it's higher. Let's catch my finger. Anyway, you guys get the idea. Basically, you want to get both of these tabs in and then just release the tension on this clamp, and you should be good to go. If it's like caught in there, you can tap with the hammer to finish it off. Alright, see you guys in a bit. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to JB weld these mounts back together. I guess the one thing you want to make sure is, since this could turn a little bit, since it's loose, you just want to make sure that this lines up with this part, like the pointy part lines up with that. Because once you inject the JB weld, you don't want to really move it around too much. So I'm going to be starting with the bottom. So we'll put it in here first. So you want to inject it into this hole. So what I use is a 20cc or millimeter syringe. I mean, you could use something bigger, but I just didn't want to waste the 30. So this exactly fits in a 20. You'll see once I fill it up. But here's the JB Weld. I used the slow setting basic stuff in the tubes. So steel and the hardener. Now I use all of this in one sitting. So you don't really have to worry about measuring it out, because I'm just going to squeeze it all out. So, it's kind of like toothpaste. And this is just like a piece of tile that I'm going to mix it on. I've used cardboard before, but I find it's better to use something more solid if you have it. I'd use this little trick where you roll it up to get every little ounce out of here. But you probably don't have to do this. I just don't like to waste it. And I start with the steel because, I don't know, I feel like it takes longer for this to cure. Not that it makes a huge difference. I do recommend gloves, obviously. Okay, it's about used up. I'm going to put this right next to it. They are bubbles. Alright, that's pretty much all of it. So, I like to start with the bigger one first. So what I like to do is kind of flatten this out. And you take a little bit of this, mix it in. It works better the flatter you get it. And you want to make sure you keep flipping it over because it gets on both sides of the spatula as it rolls over the edge of it. So. Take some more. I'm just going to add the rest in because this isn't like medicine, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Probably helps if you have a bigger plate because this is getting kind of on the edges. But we'll make it happen. You could also use the other spatula, like scrape this off like that. Kind of like make sure it's like really evenly mixed, but this is actually already getting pretty good. Tile's actually a little bit trickier, I feel like, because the cardboard flexes a little bit. You could scrape it off a little bit easier, I feel like. But basically, once you get this dark gray color, you're pretty much mixed. Just make sure there's no white spots in there. Should be good to go. Alright, so I'm going to use the smaller one for this. So you want to take a little bit. I like to hold the bottom so it doesn't leak out with one finger. That was probably a lot to try and get in here. But you kind of want to push it down with the tip as you go. And then like push the middle of it off the edge and it kind of feeds it into it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It'll all get in there. eventually. See, that's what happens when you try and push too much in there. It kind of bulges out the side. It's also a lot easier if you have a bigger syringe, because it gives you more room to push it in. Stuff takes a long time to cure, so you don't have to be like in a super hurry. That's pretty good. I mean, sometimes I have less waste than that, but it's not too bad. Alright, so when you insert this plunger, make sure you hold the tip with one finger. Doesn't really matter which one. And make sure that it's pushed down a little bit so it doesn't fly out when you insert this. I'm going to let it out a little bit to give me some air. The trick is you can just tap this and let the air come out a little bit at the top. When you tap it, it gets all the air out the top, so you're going to lose a little bit. I can see the air at the top there. But I don't like any bubbles in my JB weld, so that gets it pretty consistent throughout. Now this shows you how the 20cc isn't like the best size since it's like overfilled, but I'm not exactly measuring it, so it's not a big deal. So I'm going to take this, stick the tip in there. Now I kind of hold it on the angle of the side to kind of shoot it in both sides. So pretty much just push it. It kind of takes some force to inject because the stuff is pretty thick. Now you can see when it starts to fly out the end that you pretty much got as much as you're going to get in there. I'm going to pull this back just a hair so it doesn't keep falling out. So once you get as much in there as that you can fit in there, see it kind of bubbles out on you when I pushed in on it. I'm going to flip it over gently so it doesn't move. And if you look inside here, you can see how the JB weld kind of fit up against the edge. Now I might go back and add a little bit more on this side since it kind of, but I don't think I'm really going to get any more in there, to be honest. So I'm going to put it on the top. In this hole. You can't really see in there because there's not a lot of gap, but I could kind of see it by looking. The camera's not really going to see it, but you could see it kind of injects in there. So I got about 10, there's about 12 left in here, so I think that should be enough to do one more. It might be a little bit less than that one, but we'll see. I know this one was really tight, so there's not as much space in this one, so I was going to do this one with what was left over, because I figured it's not going to use as much. If you can't push it in, make sure you lift it out just a little bit so that it could come out of the syringe. That's pretty much what it looks like. I mean, if you want it to be a professional finish, you just like wipe the top even with a paper towel, but it's not really going to hurt anything. So Now basically you just let this cure for, I don't know, I would say like a day. And then I would just put, the final step to this is just weld a bead on each side where you grounded it, and that's pretty much complete. And it's ready to go in the car. So that's pretty much all there is to it. I'm gonna also coat these, grind off some of this rust and give it a coat of paint since it's getting kind of rusty. And that's pretty much it. So, thanks for watching. Hope this video helps you guys. And that's it.